All right, last week we started out the right way. We won, and I'm glad that we're 1-0 at this point. I hope we learned some things from that game because we can improve dramatically from the way we played. And we play a much better football team this week, a team that's got excellent talent, a team that gained over 600 yards and scored 51 points in their first game, so it's going to be quite a challenge. We're looking forward to it. We hope a lot of people come out and watch.
What things in particular do you need to improve? Penalties maybe on the list?
Oh, yeah, I think the holding penalties, we got to cut those to a minimum, and I think we have to block better for the running game, and we have to tackle better on defense.
Is the fact that you have a new fullback more of a factor in trying to get your running game going than maybe a lot of us think?
I think as good as our fullback has been over the last 4 years, and we have guys that have never played that position back there, I think that it has a little to do with us not blocking as well for the run, sure. But they'll get better as they go.
You're going up against Webb and Hanson, who showed they had a pretty strong quarterback-wide receiver connection last week. And so how is your defense going to approach it differently as opposed to last week's?
I don't know how we're going to approach it differently. I mean, we're going to try to pressure the quarterback and cover the receivers. I mean, everybody that they play does that. Not very many people have been successful doing it. They run a scheme that a lot of people are running now, but it makes it very, very hard on defenses. I didn't get to watch total games, but I got to watch partial games, and all the spread teams, I didn't see anybody slow a spread team down. Even the people that are supposedly have great athletes on defense didn't even, I mean, the scores were out of sight. So I guess we're going to have to outscore them.
Playing them last year, is there anything that you can take from that game, or are the teams just too different? I mean, I know Goff is left, and you have a lot of guys that are left, but is there anything you can take from that game coming into this week?
The teams aren't different. I mean, the quarterback they have now is probably not going to be the first guy picked in the draft, but he's pretty darn good. I mean, all you have to do is watch this very first game and then look at his record at his former school and see how many yards he threw for, how many touchdown passes he threw. They didn't take a step backwards. I'll promise you at quarterback they didn't take a step backwards. So the teams are basically the same teams that played last year, and they won 35-7. So what's that tell you? The two teams are the same teams basically that played a year ago. I would say that makes them 28-point favorites.
Can you talk about Davis Webb and just the dynamics of his game? Because he's thrown like 51 TD passes in 2.5 years.
Well, that's what I was saying. People will think that because Jared Goff was the first guy picked in the draft that they're taking a step backwards at quarterback. They are not. It was a nice thing for them to get a guy that had experience as a starter. He played in the exact same system at his former school. I will bet they even call the formations, the plays, and everything the same. I would guess that his progression reads are exactly the same as the school he came from. So it's not like they have a new quarterback. They have a very experienced quarterback in that system that has good players around him, and he can execute it very, very well. So I don't see any drop-off. I would bet that in their first game last year, they didn't gain over 600 yards total offense.
Rocky, he had committed to Colorado and then changed his mind. Is that kind of the way of the world these days as far as especially the fifth-year guys and the graduate guys kind of searching for the best fit for them?
I think every fifth-year graduate that is not going to start at the school they're at the time, that they're looking for a place that they have a legitimate chance to start. And it really worked out for him because it's exactly the same system. You don't have to go to a place and learn a brand new system and start from scratch. You come in with the same system, which gives you a much better chance to compete to be the starter. So I don't know the young man at all, but he made a good choice.
You said you opened as you see them as a 28-point favorite, but you guys opened as a 7-point favorite. What do you think? Looking at that, and why do you think that would be?
I have no idea how the gamblers set a line. None whatsoever. I've been told it's just so people will bet on the other team.
Rocky,
They figure
Hawaii-
Cal has more people to bet on than we do, I guess.
Hawaii tried to blitz him throughout the whole game, never got there. Is the key to confuse him and make him hold the ball with your types of coverages more than going after him?
I think the key is to play well. I don't think it is an attitude or philosophy. It's to play well. If you're going to blitz them, you got to get some pressure on them, and you have to play good man coverage. Hawaii didn't get enough pressure on them, and they didn't play good man coverage. There are times when they rushed 3 and 4 and played zone coverage, and he completed every pass then too. So it has nothing to do with what you do X and O wise. It's about the guys playing and executing. Our scheme is as solid and as fundamentally sound as it can be. Now it's up to players to play and players to execute. If you want to win, they got to execute.
Can you compare his style to other spread quarterbacks you've played in the past? Is he like anybody?
Well, he's run the same system as Jared Goff, and he's bigger and stronger. He probably maybe doesn't run quite as well, but he has the same ability to throw it. He's tall. He's 6'5" or 6'6". I don't know exactly what. And so he can see over the pass rush. He's 230 pounds, so he can shake them off. If they don't hit him right, he can shake them off. I just want to see the guy that beat him out at Texas Tech.
Rocky, given the gulf that's taken place between the Power 5 schools and the Group of 5 schools, what's the key to closing that gap, or can it ever be closed? And is it going to get too far away to ever be closed?
Well, now you're getting into philosophy, the philosophy of sports. You're never going to close the gap financially, ever. Which means that the Power 5 schools have a huge advantage in the things they can offer and how they recruit. So their chances of getting really good players is much, much better than our chance of getting really good players. But the great thing about athletics is that there's people out there that if you do a good job of evaluating and you get the right kind of kids that will believe and work hard enough and develop and get their skills to the point that they can compete, the game's up for grabs. Just because they have a lot better resources than us doesn't mean our players are going into the game thinking they deserve to win. Our players are going to play them as tough as they can play them. And if we're skilled enough and we execute well enough, we got a chance to win. But there's no closing that gap. It just gets bigger and bigger every day.
You said 28-point spread last year, which it was in the final score, but you guys did have a 7-0 lead throughout the first half. They scored, I think, with a couple of minutes left, and then there was a turnover, and they scored it while the game. But did that give you enough of a sense that you can play with Cal, give your kids enough of a sense that they can play with Cal heading into this matchup this time around?
I don't think last year's game has anything to do with this year's game. I don't think last season has anything to do with this season. I think last year we had a chance to play with them and we blew it. And like you said, I think watching the game, I just watched it again on film. We should have gone in at halftime 7-7. We went in at halftime 14-7. In the very first play of the second half, they throw a 76-yard touchdown pass in a coverage that should prevent all deep passes. So it's not about scheme. It's about execution. If we would have executed well, I mean, the score they get right before halftime is because we throw an interception. So if we execute well, it's going to be a great football game. I think everybody should come out and watch because I think it's going to be one of those that I've watched on TV. I mean, I saw a couple late overtime games that were unbelievable. I mean, those games were fun to watch now. I think this one's going to be fun to watch.
Coach, you mentioned executing, and against Cal, you're going to pass it a lot. just based off the first game of the year, they did a lot of 3 wide receiver, 4 wide receiver stuff. Any confidence in how they look in that game that could lead on to this game?
I think they had a explosive offense last year, and I think they look exactly the same. Going into the season, everybody was wondering about who their quarterback was going to be, and then obviously they got an experienced quarterback that's pretty good, so they don't have that issue anymore. They have 7 starters back on defense, so they ought to be better on defense. They're a little young at wide receiver, but they were highly, highly recruited kids, and they're big, strong, and fast.
Can you talk about the involvement of the passing game, Chapman, Holder, and the growth that you need to get, what you saw game 1 compared to a year ago?
I think that was the best thing that happened in our last game. They were using basically 10 guys to stop the run. Their safeties were at 8 yards deep, so they could support the run like linebackers. And if anybody puts that many people close to the line of scrimmage, your receivers have to be able to beat somebody one-on-one. And then the quarterback has to be able to put it in the spot he can catch it. So that was nice to see that we were able to do that, because I'm sure there's other people going to put a lot of people near the line of scrimmage too. So we're going to have to be able to do that to be successful.
Are you worried at all about playing? They're very up-tempo about playing an up-tempo game, kind of high scoring, based on how you guys have really been focused on defense.
Not anymore. I mean, that when they first started going play every 15 to 18 seconds, that was very difficult to get used to. But that was about 3 years ago. Now we've played so many of those teams, it's just part of the deal. And people don't worry about it anymore, and they're in good enough shape to do it. And I mean, we'll see. I was shocked last week because they were an up-tempo team, but they tried to run the clock. Cal won't do that. Cal will try to get as many plays as they can get in, but we'll play 4 or 5 other teams this year that will do the same thing. They're going to snap the ball every 15 to 18 seconds, and that used to be a big deal. It's not a big deal anymore.
Rocky, you guys threw the ball 25 times last weekend against New Hampshire. Do you envision that balance continuing like that? I mean, I know it's just one game, and obviously it depends, but it seems like you have a different quarterback.
I think it depends on what the other team does on defense. If the other team wants to play safe coverages and we effectively run the ball, we probably won't throw it that much. If they want us to get close to the line of scrimmage and try to prevent us from running it, we'll probably throw it 25 or 30 times the next time, too, they do that.
But it's an advantage for you guys, though, this year. You have that ability to do so now, right?
Well, we did last week. Okay? I mean, one game doesn't make a season.
How did your position battles go? How did they shake out when you looked at the film? I mean, your linebackers, your 2 cornerbacks, et cetera.
Well, nobody jumped up and took reins to be the starter, so we'll continue to substitute those guys, and they'll play about equal reps.
Rocky, given what your own program has accomplished and how far you guys have come, and expectations that are out there, can too much emphasis be placed on a game like this just because it's a Power 5? You want the truth of people that play the game and that coach the game? Yeah, way too much emphasis is putting on it. Preseason, I mean, how many top 20 teams got beat? I think there was a couple Power 5 teams got beat by 1AA teams, and they were ranked. I mean, obviously, it breeds excitement and it breeds interest. But I checked, and not one team in college football last year went undefeated. Not one. Not one team. And people are talking about around here like we're supposed to go undefeated. Not one team last year went undefeated. Not one. So there's obviously a lot more emphasis on one game than there should be.
What does it mean to a program to beat a Power 5 school? I mean, look at what Eastern Washington did in Pullman last weekend.
Yeah, it's funny that you act like we never have. I mean, we have. I don't think it makes any any difference than beating Air Force in the championship game. That was probably more important than beating a Power 5 team. What's important is trying to win against whoever you play. It doesn't matter who you play. It's not any more important to play them than it was to play New Hampshire. It's not any more important. Conference games are more important. Championship games are the most important.
Special teams wise, your kicker seemed to debut very well, made a field goal. All his kickoffs went into the end zone. I'm sure you're happy with that. Punt returning, DJ started there, and then you replaced him. Can you discuss that a little bit? Why or what the reasoning was behind all that?
The game was in hand, and he'd already taken too many hits, and we want to get him all through every game. Okay, since we had already won the game and it was pretty much in hand, we didn't see any reason to get him hit anymore on a punt return. I thought our kicker was good. He was really good. I thought we could have done a better job punting. We didn't punt very well.
What does that say, Rocky, with DJ going forward with punt returns? I mean, he's going to get hit every game, so how will you decide?
I think everything we do with DJ is going to be predicted by the game situation. I mean, if he's carrying the ball 30 to 35 times a game, he might start off that game returning punts, but he might not finish the game returning punts. If they are not allowing this because they're too good or something, they're not allowing us to run the ball, and he's only getting the ball in his hands 10, 12, 13 times, now he's going to be returning punts. He might even return kickoffs because somehow we've got to get the ball in his hands. Now, he might be more of a receiver. It's all dictated by how the game's going.
Did you see the Pumphrey for Heisman banner alongside?
I did.
University Towers? How do you feel about all that?
I thought it was a really nice banner. Yeah. I saw it Sunday morning when I came to work. It looks nice, huh? All we got to do is get it to go viral on the internet, right? Everybody needs to see it.
Coach, starting the season off with such a huge win, compare that to last season and losing the first couple of games. What is the morale like in the locker room with the team?
I think the morale's good. I thought that going into the season the morale's pretty good. We'll see how we play this week. I thought we went about it last week business-like, and that's okay if you're the better football team. It's not okay if the other team has more talent. If the other team has more talent, you got to be more than business-like. You got to be on edge. You got to be riled up. You got to play with a sense of urgency and excitement about you, and I didn't think we did that last week.
You talked about the running game not being what you were hoping for. Not sustaining blocks long enough, not executing in terms of who you were supposed to block. What was the biggest issue?
Well, that's a great question. We had very little assignment errors on both sides of the ball. But our techniques and our execution wasn't very good. So much so that it might be on an offensive lineman, it might be the wrong step with the wrong foot, leading with the wrong foot, placing your hands in the wrong place. The real issue was we blocked the right guys, but we didn't go on and block at the second level. In order to get a running back started, you have to be able to block the line of scrimmage, get him into the line of scrimmage, and then pick off some linebackers or two in order for him to get where he can make some people miss and maybe break a long one. We didn't block at the second level. We didn't get to the second level good enough to cut off linebackers and safeties. We believe that can be fixed by improving their fundamentals and their techniques, because the techniques weren't very good. And obviously, if you don't do things the right way, you don't do it very well. So we have to be able to get our running back into the line of scrimmage and then pick off some linebackers and safeties so he can make a big play out of it.
Does that mean kind of changing the practice schedule or adding a couple extra periods just to
No, we don't add periods when the season starts, because I think the worst thing in the world you can do is put a tired football team on the field. But hopefully, since it's been emphasized in meetings and on film, the players will take hold and they'll do things better at practice so that when they get in the game, they'll do it technically right.
You have a pretty veteran defense, why do you think their technique is not right?
Normally it's because when you get to a game, it's so much faster than practice is. So in practice, if you're a pretty good player, you can get things done without doing them right. And it's more of a lazy mentality than it is physically, because they're in pretty good shape. But it's a lazy mentality. If they're covering someone that can't run, they don't have to do it right. They can be high, they can plant off the wrong foot, and they still get them covered, and they don't think it's any big deal. And then they get in a game, and the tempo is speeded up, and the players are faster, and they're running harder, and then all of a sudden that stuff gets them in trouble. It's the same with offensive linemen. Those scout team defensive linemen are sitting there and being blocked so they can get to the second level. Now, all of a sudden, they're playing against someone that doesn't want to be blocked, and you better do your technique right, or you're not going to get them blocked.